Hello, my dear nerds. Welcome to the video. I hope you all are doing great, and I also hope you're excited to delve into the world of Old English literature. Today, we'll be looking at one of the most important literary works in the Old English period. Yep, you heard me right. It's Beowulf. Though written by an anonymous writer in the Common Era, Beowulf has fascinated readers from all ages and has even inspired many contemporary literary gems. So why wait? Let's jump right in and look at the context, shall we? Beowulf is a super old epic poem written in Old English, and it's all about heroes and monsters and stuff. The story takes place in ancient Scandinavia back in the 6th century. Beowulf, this awesome Geat hero, comes to help out Hrothgar, the king of the Danes. Hrothgar's mead hall, called Herod, is being attacked by this monster named Grendel. Beowulf kills Grendel and then takes on Grendel's mother, who also causes trouble. Beowulf defeats her too and becomes the king of the Geats. But wait, it doesn't end there. 50 years later, Beowulf faces off against a dragon. He wins, but he gets hurt real bad and eventually dies. His crew cremates his body and builds a big old barrow on a headland to honor him. Now, there's been a lot of debate among scholars about when Beowulf was actually written and how it was transmitted. Some say it was passed down orally, and others think it was written by a Christian scribe. You see, there are some Christian elements in the poem mixed with all the pagan stuff. The whole thing is written in Old English, mostly in the late West Saxon dialect, but there are some other dialects thrown in too. The poem survived in a single copy called Novel Codex. Unfortunately, it got damaged in a fire in 1731. But thankfully, it didn't completely burn. Some parts were lost though. The Novel Codex is kept safe in the British Library. Since then, Beowulf has been translated and retranslated a bunch of times. Lots of people have tried to put it into modern English, either in regular sentences or in cool poetic forms. Some translators stuck close to the original, while others took some creative liberties. Some famous translations were done by Edwin Morgan, Burton Raphael, Michael J. Alexander, Roy Liuza, and Seamus Heaney. It's a challenging poem to translate, as J.R.R. Tolkien himself discovered when he worked on his own versions. But hey, it's still a classic tale of heroism and monsters, so it's worth checking out. Why don't we take a look at the background of Beowulf? Yo, listen up. Beowulf is one of the oldest English texts still kicking around, written over 1,000 years ago. And we are not talking Shakespeare or Chaucer kind of English, but Old English. It's like a whole different world. Now, if you think Old English is all forsooths and verilies like Shakespeare, you're dead wrong. That's early modern English, my friend. And don't even get me started on Chaucer and his Canterbury Tales with their wonky spellings and weird pronunciations. That's Middle English, a whole other ballgame. No, if you want to experience real Old English, brace yourself for Beowulf. But hold up, where do we even begin? This story is a hot mess. It's got drive-by exposition where the narrator goes off on random tangents, dropping historical knowledge bombs left and right. They'll take a detour to explain the lineage of kings or the significance of a tiny pile of gold. Crazy, right? But if you cut out all that noise, what's left is a simple story. Picture this. One dude beats up three massive monsters, becomes king of a small kingdom, and ends up inspiring cool stuff like Tolkien's works and Skyrim. Pretty badass if you ask me. Now, let me fill you in on a cool fact. Beowulf literally means bee wolf, which was a fancy way of saying bee hunter. But really it just meant bear. Weird, huh? Okay, okay. Now let's dive into the backstory. Once upon a time, in ancient Denmark, there was a legendary king named Shilshefing. But guess what? He doesn't even show up in the book. However, his son, Beowulf, not that Beowulf from the story, becomes a mighty king when Shield kicks the bucket. Complicated family tree, huh? Now, this Beowulf, still not the main guy, has a son named Helfden. Things get spicy when Helfden gets himself killed by Froda, the king of the Heatherbos, who might have been his brother. Drama, drama, drama. But none of this drama makes it into the book. Bummer, right? But wait, Helfden managed to pop out 4 kids before his demise, although we forgot one kid's name. The 3 known kids are Herogar, Helga, and Hrothgar. No relation. And guess who shows up in our story? Hrothgar, baby. Hrothgar wins a big war, gets crowned king, and decides to flex his power by building the most epic party spot ever, Herod, the ultimate party venue. Hrothgar and his crew spent their days partying hard, and that's where our story truly begins. So, there you have it, a wild ride through Beowulf's backstory and Hrothgar's party palace. If you want more details or have any burning questions, hit me up. Okay, now let's take a look at the characters of Beowulf. First up, we have Beowulf, the main dude in the story, obviously. He is a Geatish hero who fights monsters like Grendel, Grendel's mother, and a fiery dragon. Beowulf is the strongest and bravest warrior around. When he is young, he is all about honor and being a badass. And when he is old, he becomes a wise and kick-ass ruler. King Hrothgar, the king of the Danes. He is doing pretty well until Grendel starts causing trouble in his mead hall Herod. Hrothgar is an old and wise leader, kind of like a father figure to Beowulf. He is the type of king Beowulf aspires to be. Grendel, a demon descended from Cain. This ugly monster terrorizes Hrothgar's warriors in Herod because he is seeking revenge for his miserable existence. Grendel fits right into the whole vengeance thing going on in this world. Grendel's mother, a swarm hag who is really pissed off. She is less human than Grendel, but wants revenge too. She is the one who attacks Herod after Beowulf kills Grendel. The dragon. This ancient and super powerful serpent guards a huge treasure hoard. Beowulf faces off against it in the final part of the story. Shilshefsin, the legendary king who started the Danish line of rulers. He is the ultimate hero and leader. Everyone's like, damn, he was a good king. Beowulf. He is Shilshefsin's son and half Dane's dad. Beowulf is a gift from God to the people who need a leader. He is all about behaving well to gain power. Half Dane, Hrothgar's dad and ruler of the Danes after Beowulf. He's got a bunch of kids, including Hrothgar. Wealhtheow, Hrothgar's wife and the queen of the Danes. She's all gracious and nice. Unferth, some warrior dude who's jealous of Beowulf. He can't even fight Grendel, so he's pretty useless compared to Beowulf. Hrethric, Hrothgar's oldest son. He is set to inherit the Danish throne, but his jerk cousin Hrothulf wants to take it away from him. Hrothmund, Hrothgar's other son. Not much else to say about him. Hrothulf, Hrothgar's nephew and a total backstabber. He betrays Hrethric and steals his rightful place as the next king. Ashtere, Hrothgar's trusted advisor who gets killed by Grendel's mother. Not a good day for him. Hygelac, Beowulf's uncle and the king of the Geats. He is pumped to welcome Beowulf back from Denmark. Haid, Hygelac's wife. She is young, beautiful, and smart. A nice queen. Beowulf, Beowulf's loyal sidekick. When everyone else runs away from the dragon, Beowulf sticks by Beowulf's side. He is a true hero and a suitable successor to Beowulf. Ecgtheow, Beowulf's dad and Hrothgar's buddy. He's already dead when the story starts, but people still talk about how cool he was. King Hrethel, the Geatish king who takes Beowulf in as a foster child after Ecgtheow dies. Breca, Beowulf's childhood friend whom he beats in a swimming match. Siemund, a figure from Norse mythology, famous for slaying a dragon. Siemund's story is told in praise of Beowulf and foreshadows Beowulf's encounter with the dragon. King Heremod, an evil king of legend. The Scop or Bard at Herod discusses King Heremod as a figure who contrasts greatly with Beowulf. Queen Modred, a wicked queen of legend who punishes anyone who looks at her the wrong way. Modred's story is told in order to contrast her cruelty with Hyade's gentle and reasonable behavior. Alright, nerds, now that you're familiar with all the characters of Beowulf, why don't we take a look at the plot summary? Trust me, it's going to be super awesome. Beowulf fights Grendel. Back in the day, when crazy creatures like ghoulies and ghosties were just running around causing havoc, there was this total nightmare called Grendel. He's this big, ugly dude who's supposedly descended from the biblical king. And where does he live? In a gross swamp near the Lake of Monsters. Yeah, sounds delightful. So Hrothgar, who lives nearby, decides to build this epic party spot called Herod. But guess what? The constant partying and noise tick off Grendel. Dude's got a major Grinch complex. So what does he do? He decides to crash the party by killing everyone. Efficient, right? He sneaks into Herod, wrecks the place, murders 30 of Hrothgar's warriors, and bolts. And the worst part? This becomes a nightly routine. You would think after the first time a bloodthirsty monster massacres your friends, the party vibe would die down. But no, these nods are tough. It takes a few more visits from Grendel before Hrothgar finally asks his buddies, the Geats, for help. I guess he got tired of losing warriors or fixing that damn door every day. Enter the Storm Gates, led by the legendary Beowulf. This dude is seriously cool. Hrothgar has known him since they were kids, and Beowulf has made quite a reputation for himself slaying monsters. So Hrothgar asks Beowulf for his plan to take down Grendel. And Beowulf's like, hey, let's keep it fair. Grendel doesn't use weapons, so I won't either. And everyone's like, hell yeah, that's a brilliant idea. But just because they are about to face a murderous giant doesn't mean they can't party. In Nordic culture, it's practically a reason to celebrate. So they have a wild time at Herod, dancing and drinking, getting all hyped up. But there's this one warrior, Unferth, who doubts Beowulf's skills. He's like, yo, Beowulf, I heard you lost a swimming contest to your buddy Breca. How can a loser like you take down Grendel? And Beowulf hits him back with a killer response. He's like, yeah, it's true. I lost to Breca, but hey, I had to deal with 9 sea monsters on that swim. Cut me some slack. When night falls, Beowulf gets ready for the battle by stripping off his armor and weapons. He is just waiting in Herod for Grendel to show up. And guess what? Grendel smashes through the door and the epic smackdown begins. They wreck the place, throwing punches like crazy. And guess who comes out on top? Beowulf! He straight up rips off Grendel's arm using his bare hands. Talk about a brutal takedown. Grendel's like, I'm out of here, and runs back to his swarm to bleed out. Beowulf gives Grendel's arm to Hrothgar as a trophy, and he's showered with rewards. Hrothgar's like, Yo, Beowulf, you're the man. He hooks him up with access to his halls, some sweet gear, and probably throws in a house in Whiterun. Just kidding, wrong game. Even Unferth is like, My bad, Beowulf, you're the real deal. He apologizes and hands Beowulf a badass sword named Hrunding as a way of saying sorry. They all start fixing up Herod and, of course, decide to celebrate by getting wasted. It's party time! Grendel's mother's revenge. Hold up, the good times don't last long. Grendel's mother storms into the hall, kills Hrothgar's advisor, snatches Grendel's arm, and vanishes. Hrothgar's like, Beowulf, it's your turn to avenge our fallen comrade. Beowulf embarks on a quest to hunt down Grendel's mother. They track her through some seriously wicked places and end up at the Lake of Monsters. The place is crawling with sea creatures and all sorts of freaky stuff. Beowulf gears up, puts on his heavy armor, and dives into the lake. Yeah, he's a beast. He can hold his breath for ages, so the journey down doesn't faze him. When he reaches the bottom, Grendel's mother ambushes him and drags him into her cave. But guess what? Beowulf ain't backing down. They engage in an epic battle, but Beowulf's sword, Hrunding, can't do a damn thing against her. So, he switches gears and uses his sick wrestling moves. But Grendel's mother ain't impressed. She tries to stab him. Luckily, her hoarding tendencies come in handy. Her cave is filled with magical weaponry. So Beowulf grabs a shiny sword and kills her with it. After slaying Grendel's mother, Beowulf finds Grendel's lifeless body and chops off his head as a trophy. Oh, and here's an interesting tidbit. Both Grendel and his mom were immune to regular weapons. But this magic sword Beowulf found was special. It was forged by giants and could actually hurt them. Talk about luck, right? Beowulf swims back to the surface, proudly carrying Grendel's head and the hilt of the sword. He presents them to Hrothgar, who is beyond impressed. More rewards come Beowulf's way and they all party hard once again. Life is good. After all the monster slaying adventures, Beowulf and the Geats sail back to their homeland. Beowulf presents their king Hygelac with a bunch of treasure and in return, he is hailed as a hero. Hygelac hooks him up with a fancy sword, land and a kick-ass house. Beowulf's living the dream. Beowulf fights a dragon. Hold up, there is more. Beowulf, who became a king, rules without any trouble for a solid 50 years. That is, until some random idiot angers a freaking dragon by stealing a cup from its treasure hoard. Seriously, people, Beowulf's got another monster to fight. This dragon had been chilling in a barrow filled with gold for who knows how long. The barrow was like a burial mound for some ancient warriors and it was jam-packed with fancy loot. But then some sneaky thief thought it would be a great idea to snatch the dragon's favorite teacup or something. Yeah, not the brightest move. The dragon gets pissed and decides to burn everything in sight until he finds the culprit. Sound familiar? Yeah, Tolkien took inspiration from this classic tale. Anyway, the dragon burns down Beowulf's house and our hero ain't having it. Beowulf challenges the dragon to a one-on-one fight, but he is not stupid enough to go in empty-handed. So Beowulf and his crew of 12 backup dancers decide to go face the dragon. They bring along the thief and the stolen shiny thing because why not? Now, you might think it's unfair to use weapons against a massive fire-breathing hellspawn, but Beowulf knows better than to try bare-handed wrestling with a goddamn dragon. So he brings his fancy sword, Naegling, an heirloom that shines like crazy. But guess what? That shiny sword doesn't last long. It snaps in half within 3 seconds of the fight. Man, they go through swords like coffee filters around here. Most of Beowulf's crew freaks out and runs into the woods, leaving him with just one guy, Beowulf. Beowulf could not stand by and watch Beowulf get toasted by the dragon. Beowulf rushes to Beowulf just in time for the dragon to bite Beowulf's neck. Ouch! But hey, Beowulf doesn't let that stop him. He goes for his dagger while Beowulf finds a weak spot in the dragon's armor and lands a hit. Beowulf finishes the job with his trusty knife. You'd think he'd be in trouble with that massive neck wound, right? Nah, he's too cool to let a little blood loss slow him down. But the dragon's poison is a different story. Beowulf knows he is dying, so he tells Beowulf to come closer and make one last request. He asks Beowulf to go grab the treasure from the dragon's hoard so Beowulf can take one last look at his hard-earned riches. Beowulf sneaks into the barrow and returns with a bunch of shiny loot. Beowulf's like, "Thanks, kid. Enjoy being the next king." And then he dies. Now, Beowulf, as the new king, kicks out the 11 cowards who ran away from the dragon. The Gates retrieve the rest of the dragon's treasure and hold a kick-ass funeral for Beowulf. They even set up an awesome barrow for him, burying the dragon's treasure alongside him. And that's the end of Beowulf's epic saga, my nerds. Hey, you know what's next? Yep, you're correct, nerds. It's the themes, motives, symbols, and the hidden meanings in Beowulf. The first theme is the importance of establishing identity. Beowulf is all about heroic deeds, and identity plays a major role in the poem. Ancestral heritage and individual reputation are key components of identity. Characters are always referencing their family lineage when talking about themselves. Family history is important because the poem values kinship bonds and characters try to live up to the heroic standards set by their ancestors. The second theme is tensions between the heroic code and other value systems. The Germanic heroic code is a big deal in Beowulf. It values strength, courage, loyalty, hospitality, generosity, and good reputation. Characters make moral judgments based on this code. However, the poem also shows conflicts between the heroic code and other values like those of Christianity. Divided loyalties and ethical dilemmas arise that the code does not provide clear guidance for. The tension between these values is explored throughout the poem. Difference between a good warrior and a good king. Beowulf starts as a warrior and becomes a wise leader. The values associated with each role differ. Young Beowulf seeks personal glory while the older Hrothgar wants to protect his people. The poem delves into the responsibilities of a king like rewarding warriors, providing protection, and being diplomatic. Beowulf's own journey from warrior to king highlights the tension between these two roles and the challenges they present. Evil. Monsters in Beowulf are seen as embodiments of evil, but they also have comprehensible motives. Grendel, for example, acts out of isolation, envy, and fear. The poem humanizes evil by showing their points of view. It suggests that evil is both a mysterious, inhuman force and a part of human life. Even human actions of war and violence make us question the difference between humans and monsters. Treasure. Glory in Beowulf is often measured in treasure. Beowulf's achievement in killing Grendel is rewarded with treasure from Hrothgar. The generosity with treasure reflects a king's glory. However, Beowulf questions the value of treasure. The dragon's hoard, the biggest treasure, is tarnished and corroded. Beowulf's dying wish to see the treasure he won raises questions about the worth of worldly possessions and mortality. Mortality. Death is a central theme in Beowulf. The poem begins with a funeral and deals with the story of a murderous monster. Beowulf risks death to achieve fame, and even his friends think he has died in battle. Some readers see his journey to the bottom of the mere as a symbolic death. The final part of the poem focuses on Beowulf's own death and funeral. The poem explores the tragic aspect of pagan mortality, but also presents Beowulf as a heroic figure who accomplishes great deeds in the face of death. Now let's look at the symbols. The first symbol is the golden torque. The fancy necklace that Wealhtheow gives Beowulf is a symbol of loyalty between her people and the Geats. It becomes even more meaningful when we find out that Hygelac died wearing it in battle, showing the connection between different generations. The mead hall. There are two mead halls in the poem: Hrothgar's Heorot in Denmark and Hygelac's hall in Geatland. These halls are important cultural places where warriors find warmth, food, and fun. They serve as safe havens for returning warriors and help preserve traditions, reward loyalty, and spread stories and reputations. The banquet. The big feast at Heorot after Grendel's defeat brings order and harmony back to the Danish people. The damaged mead hall is rebuilt, symbolizing the community's rebirth. The speeches and gift giving during the banquet strengthens the sense of unity and wholeness.